Hi, we're here to talk about why you think you're not good enough. I'm gonna say so many things right now that are probably gonna hit home that I want you to be okay with it. I want you to understand that this whole societal construct as of 2023, the major societal construct has been built and organized for you to feel terrible about yourself, for you to not feel like you fit in, for you to be in a state of fight or flight, and for you to just conform and be quiet for survival. Let's look at, for particularly African Americans, right? First, we're made to believe, and what they teach in high school, nothing that predates the slave trade. And from that perspective, you are a slave, right? You are survival of slaves. And how did slaves survive? Being quiet, doing what they're told, living as second-class citizens, and being told to be okay with it. And so this much abuse, also while denying how powerful African countries and cultures actually were, through a Europeanized and a money-centered focus, that brown skin and Native American skin are less worthy, and in fact, they're worth fighting just for some normal type of life, right? Well, when you actually look at it, being in tune with nature, anticipating your family's needs, being able to harvest, being able to rest when necessarily, being able to hear the body is huge. Look at what's going on with bodies being riddled with diseases now. There were this is a 2 years ago statistic, but there were over 500,000 hysterectomies. Now, are those hysterectomies in the United States? So there were over 500,000 hysterectomies in the United States. And this was a stat I was looking at when I originally wrote my book in 2019. So the numbers have gone up. And if you look at Western medicine, and they call it Western medicine because they wanted to make it sound nouveau, and what it really is, it's called imperial medicine, imperialistic medicine, where it's in an effort to be similar to an empire. We must conquer, we must divide, we must separate. And so from the ideology that our body is a pathology, or our body is the culprit for disease, versus the origins of the stresses and the shifts of everything in the body itself, well, it's just mistaken, is what it is. The suffering that's not necessary, because we want to collectively survive, right? Silence is survival. Observing is survival. Staying away from drama is survival. So people who have boisterous personalities have been silenced often, or they're looked at as freaks or weirdos. We can't really understand what it is to be the villain if we are playing the victim. And we all know that the actual victims of violence have been told to be quiet, have told to be hushed so that their perpetrators can be kept safe, right? So now that we're past the stage of Black Lives Matter, right? The use of the political movement of brown skin. Have they reformed the police trainings to be anti-racist? No, they've made them more racist. They privatized prisons so that they can arrest and separate the families. They've deemed crime the issue, not the reason crime exists, which is a survival situation, right? Mindset, indoctrinated belief. And if you're from multiple generations of this, then you know that this was never okay. This never worked for anybody. But we allowed it. Why? Because survival. Death is a very intimidating thing. And so the perpetrators of abuse, people who are misusing their power, they will often try to silence those that can take that power, that will make the death of the situation, make the death of who they are. And so it helps if you, because of all this questioning of self, right? Seeing a violent act, knowing that it's wrong, and being forced to be quiet over it. If you were in the slave quarters, a master wanted to take your daughter or your wife or yourself, you weren't allowed to protest. You got beaten. You got killed. You had to accept personal violence on your person for survival. So not only did this twofold create insecurity and a split in the person who's subjected to the violence, and those around that person subjected to the violence that could have spoken up, or even seeing someone get killed in front of them that spoke up to help them, it makes this feeling of wrong, right? This feeling of lack, this feeling of not good enough. Now, let's look into this a little bit more, okay? If you're sitting with multiple generations of being held back, of being told, you need to be quiet, I can do to you whatever I want, being told your body is just labor, it's not actually of purpose. If you want to be something, you have to, get an education, or you have to, have the right economic status, have the right amount of money. If you want to be worth something, you need to have the correct standard of beauty. You need to have straight hair, you need to have a weave. If your eyebrows aren't perfectly upkempt, then perhaps you are worth less because you're willing to do natural herbs, which they killed witches over, right? They silenced natural medicine. They silenced our attachment to the earth. They silenced our ability to see beauty and the awe of the world as a pleasurable experience. No, we don't want to allow that, right? Heaven forbid someone hit their natural state. You take a couple of breaths at work, or change a music station, or is that my personal information? But okay, you're not worthy of working here. What? Because I'm not willing to just listen to some tunes I don't want to listen to? Well, you slowly siphon my life away to be a worker for you. Excuse me. That's not in my wheelhouse. I do not accept that responsibility. So we get to pick, we get to choose what it is that makes us But you have to get out of flight or flight first. We can choose what makes us feel safe and whole and good enough, but we have to get out of fight or flight. We have to get it out of the nervous system, and it's hard to get it out of the nervous system when it's been happening for multiple generations. And in these generations are the same levels of oppression. Get off that cord. My cat's on a cord. Hold on. Get off that cord. Okay, so maybe I'm not even fully dressed for this video. Maybe I haven't perfected how my tapestry looks in the background. That's not going to stop me from getting this message to you, to let you know that you're good enough, to let you know that you're worthy. There's never been a chance in heaven's history that you have not been worthy. There have been other forces oppressing you so that they can feel worthy, so that they can feel like they're part of a group. People will oppress other people to feel connected to others. They can do things that they know is wrong, just so they can feel like they're part of the in crowd, or that they have an upper hand, or so that they feel worthy. And people will suppress themselves. They will hide away and not follow their dreams, not follow their intuition, and listen blindly and get themselves stuck in heartache for the duration of their lives because they're not willing to stand out. They're not willing to feel anything but I'm completely 100% accepted. Well, once you realize that in this coming golden age, there's a dark age, and you can decide whether you're on the light side of this or the dark side of this. The dark side of this is staying in denial. The dark side of this is splitting groups and saying that that person's worthy, that person's not. Saying, going into that shade of brown is worthy and that shade of brown is not. Going into that texture of hair is beautiful and that texture of hair is not. You can have your preferences of eye color, skin color, things you want to mate with, but you have to understand that all of these have been programmed into you pretty much. Having relations with and being with only one group is just really opposite of what it is to be human, right? We're all human. We're all the same species. That's why we can breed with each other. What considers itself a species is two beings that cannot breed together. If somebody is having relations with, heaven forbid, an animal that can't consent, they're not going to have a child, right? They are different species. And I'm in no shape, way, or form condoning that. In fact, I think it's horrible to take away a being's autonomy or right to choose, right? And when a child is silenced, let's say, from sexual abuse, it is important to let them be heard. It is important to let them acknowledge their pain to move forward. People will say, why can't you just get over it? Why aren't you in that here and now? A lot of people disembody when they are going into a state of fight or flight, right? And when you disembody, you're no longer able to have clear judgment. You're just in survival mode, right? You're not even trying to thrive. You are just wanting to survive. So in order to feel good enough, they, let's say, gave their power away. And so they continue to give their power away. Now, if this is passed down multiple generations, the propensity and the open epigenetic areas that will, the euchromatin they call it, and I'll get more into that into another state, maybe another video. Epigenetics, right? Because the whole program, the whole thing is epigenetic reprogramming, and we're in the state of constantly programming, so we might as well program toward what it is we're actively seeking. Get down from there. Do not, I don't know the way their tail's flapping. I better not crawl up on my, anyway. it's time for you to step in your confidence. Realize there's a $1 billion campaign that's been going on for billions, for thousands of years, to make you feel like you're less than. And you really are here for a purpose and reason. They enslaved different cultures, and it wasn't the enslaver that was actually looked at negatively. It was the slave. When someone took someone's power, they suddenly became the victim, where we all know that if you have to go so far as to kidnap someone, beat them, whip them, rape them, call them names, like ostracize them on a regular basis for multiple generations, threaten their lives in order to get them to do what you want them to do, you are not a good person. And I don't understand why that's in question. If someone lets you stay at their house and then you kill them or you threaten them and say, give me your house, I'm here, I deserve this house. That's not how it works. We all deserve houses. We all deserve the right to be here and to be comfortable in our space. And the fact that it still has continued up until this point, as of 2024, August, September, you can see how difficult it could be when an entire culture, and I say culture because that's what it is. It isn't really just ethnic groups. These people are homogenized from different areas. They're just looking to unify and hate, right? Because it makes them feel good enough when they're around other people who are saying hate is okay. To yell at someone, I'm going to rape you and your mother. That is definitely not okay. But yet they have a group with them, so they feel it's okay to say these things. Why do you think that they get to feel good enough, but the people who are actually standing up against that are told, you're not good enough, you're being an instigator? No, I'm fighting for the rights of all people, and I'm fighting for the right for you. Actually, I'm dancing for the right for you. Maybe it's an internal battle, and I'm having to even put this out to record it in a towel, massaging oil on my skin, because that's part of my self-care routine, right? It's okay to say, I'm worthy of my own time. It's okay to say, I'm worthy of this care. I'm worthy of my own time. I'm worthy to be heard. I'm worthy to be seen, even not at my best, right? I'm worthy to be heard, even though I'm not perfect. Now, I'm blessed enough that I think it's okay to make a mistake. And I've grown up like that. But I had, my ex-husband was really big on keeping quiet and don't say anything and you're sharing too much. Why? Why am I sharing too much? Why do you even believe that way? Why should you be nice to people who aren't nice to you? Is that an issue? Is that an actual problem? And so I went through a lot of the stuff that's said in my nervous system. I went through a lot of stuff that was said in my mind. And I broke it down, just like I broke it down for you guys with the slavery, with the coming in and taking over of the United States, right? With the native blood that I've had, well, with the being a woman and being told you can't dress like this, you can't dress like that, you can't act like this if you're in a certain area for your own safety, because other people don't have control and you're at fault for that if they harm you. And also what it means to feel safe, right? Because for a long time I couldn't feel safe, and I was just trying to figure out, why don't I feel safe? Why don't I feel good enough? And then I'd look at the campaigns, and I read things like The Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf, and okay, I'm at a loss for the other multitudes of books, but that was my favorite one. Mystic Paths to the Cosmic Power, right? How we are our own responsibility. in the sense that from a Christian standpoint, right? Because we grew up, most of us African American women grew up under Christianity, and I took this Goddess Studies course where I read a few different other books and articles from different people, and how it's just to suppress, it wasn't just to suppress women, it was part of women weren't given power because that was the time. So it's not in this doctrine. So people who still abide solely by those doctrines, meaning the great religious texts, still want to suppress and keep things the way they were. Why? Because they feel like they're part of something. They feel like they have intrinsic power. They feel like they have right. They feel good enough when they do that. I feel good enough when that person's lower than me. Does that make sense? I feel good enough when the whole earth is safe and we're all able to be free and our children can play outside and everything is coming up roses because everybody has food, everybody has water. We're all good enough. Everybody has safe places to sleep at night. People have learned how to properly let out their emotions and heal their generational trauma because it's that time. It's the time in our evolution. And people are killing themselves off because they don't know what it means to have that type of ego, to let it go. Some people fight for wealth. Other people fight for health. Some people dance for freedom. Other people get locked up because they abuse that freedom. And even so, some people just get locked up because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time and in the wrong color. And it's time for us to realize that we all deserve so much more than we're giving ourselves. Now, am I gonna say all these different ways that you can get good enough? Well, it's gonna take some reprogramming. It's gonna take some patience. But it's your patience with yourself. It's your patience with how you handle the next generations. It's your patience with how you handle animals. It's your patience with boundaries, right? And setting them and holding firm to them. It's time we learn that we were worthy the whole time. It's time we understand that we have always been the gifts the earth gives herself. So it's time for us to really step up. So, why you're not good enough? Only you really know. How can you feel good enough or let yourself be good enough? You're gonna have to work that out. But I gave you, through this messaging, multiple ways. Even the act of taking time to put oil on my skin and love my body just as it is. Not saying, if I do this, then I'll be good enough. Just showing up in your towel or whatever it is you got, your birthday suit, and repeating to yourself, knowing you are good enough. You are so good that you're here. And if you've gone under huge amounts of oppression, guess what? You're here for an even stronger mission. Because I'm going to use some religious terms here, so if you have some issues with it, you can turn down. But if the devil is against you, if the devil is against you, he will fight you in every turn. And there are people who say that they are full of God's holy light, but still do horrible things. And that's an extreme disconnect with personal power and allowing for autonomy. If you think that you're given as a gift to humanity, know that you're good enough where you are right now with everything you have or don't have. You can get a bazillion degrees and be put in a very high place in office and still ain't shit because you do not help other people. So trust that you are here for a reason. The devil will show you who he is by how he acts. And sometimes we got a little devil in us and we feel like we need to control another. But I tell you what, if you have dealt with any of these children, and I say dealt with, because right now we're in the age of changing and reforming parenting. So it's more gentle. Why would you run away from me if I'm trying to push you? Anyway, in this age of gentle parenting, these children are all built for the revolution because they understand that the constructs must be broken down and be rebuilt. Now, there's some things for foundational stuff that are important, but a lot of stuff that we think is important, grades, and our kids don't have an attention span, and they are just playing the game until they can get free enough to do what it is that they want. So let's empower them to make right decisions and use discernment, just like we needed to empower ourselves and use discernment to move forward. All right, well, I gotta do some more self-care. This is a nice talk. Love you. Bye-bye.